Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. You know, hey, look. Let me tell you, things are getting serious. Things are getting serious, and the misinformation is coming to you live. Not here, of course. We are here to break that misinformation that's coming. And I tell you what, my dear brothers and sisters, we have... First of all, before I even get into the show, I want to tell you something. I was watching the news today, and something interesting occurred, right? Guess what happened? It turns out that I started to see on CBS a little thing at the CBS website. Then I noticed it showed up as well on the ABC website. And guess what that story was? And by the way, we're talking, you know the headline to the story, but I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I just saw this on the news, and I wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on how the misinformation engine works. And it is so very important that we understand what is going on here, because if we don't, what happens is they win. Not only do they win, they get it out. I saw this story and I thought, this is kind of strange, because the way they headlined it is they said, oh, there are issues with generic drugs. Why would they be talking about generic drugs just in these times now? Generic drugs has been a thing for a whole long time, right? You are on generic drugs. Most people are on generic drugs. But you know, with Medicare for All on the horizon, with a whole lot of fight, of course, that's what it's going to take. But with Medicare for All on the horizon, these guys are starting to see, oh my God, we have to somehow corner the market. Everybody's going to generics, because why the hell pay for these high-priced drugs that cost next to nothing to make, who you paid for with your taxes most of the times? Why should you pay overpriced value for that? No, it makes absolutely no sense. So here is how it works, people, and I want you to understand this well. The people don't put out news. The way news comes out now, right? Especially through the mainstream media, etc. Even through news channels, because if the corporate state, if the corporations are able to use the mainstream media who many trust, in other words, if they are able to use ABC News, CBS News, NBC News to go ahead and tell a story, you look at that story as it being news and valid. And if you do that, they are in effect using the news networks as commercials to do two things: demean the competition and to prop themselves up. So what happened here? This is what I'm talking about. They are now coming out with stories about people who got hurt from generic drugs. They are talking about people who got hurt from generic drugs now. My question to you is first of all, is that news that people get hurt from taking drugs? Remember that very expensive pain-killing drug called Vioxx? Remember that was a drug put out. That wasn't a generic drug. That was a drug that was put out there, and many people got sick. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, one of the side effects of it was to cause heart conditions as well. So there, you don't hear them talking about that as being an issue, right? The fact is that drugs, whether generic or otherwise, some of them always turn out to be one that create issues, that causes damage. Don't ever believe that that isn't the case. And what they're doing right now is they're trying to pollute the space, because we're moving towards generic drugs, drugs that are no longer on patent. In order to keep their profits high, what they want to do is they want to scare people into believing that somehow there is an issue with generic drugs. Do not fall for it, and also make sure when you go to the doctors, you are prescribed generic drugs. If there is a problem with the drugs, we need to start having the government take care of that. And don't think that somehow because a drug is officially not generic or costs a whole lot of money that it is successful. You take a look at the efficacy of many of the drugs out there. What they'll tell you is, oh, taking this drug, the lifespan of the person is about, on average, is about 30 days more. Kill me. Get rid of me. Welcome aboard, Daniel Ledo. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin, and anybody else that I've missed. Go ahead and get rid of me. I do not need another 30 days to live. I do not need another 3 or 4 months to live. If I'm going to die, why put my family's fortune or my family's monies at risk for a few more days, a few more weeks, a few more months? Let's have a good, wonderful day of goodbyes. The evil within this medical system never ceases to amaze me, and what I call and the complicity of the mainstream media and the complicity of the parties always get to me. So here again, when you watch TV news and you watch stories that you look at that you can say, this is going to have an effect on product A. It'll make product A more successful on product B. It puts a negative spin on product B. Be careful. Because that is what this new story, and you'll see it, I think you're going to see it on the mainstream. I think you're going to see it on the Loop today. Because that's how they work. Remember the name of the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. The Partnership for America's Healthcare Future is an organization designed to prevent Americans from getting very good, effective, low-cost, single-payer Medicare for all healthcare. They are and they are firing on all cylinders, and they have unlimited money, your money that you pay for the expensive drugs, that you pay for the hospitals, that you pay all those things that you overpay for. They're using that money to continue to misinform you. So what I want to tell you people is this. Please do not fall for the con. It is a con. Please do not fall for the con. We can't allow ourselves to fall for the con. Okay, getting into the program. What is the program about today? The program is called, that's not the program. Anyhow, the program is called Trump Will Fight Democrats on Socialism. They must fight on a fair and moral economy. Again, Trump wants to change the conversation. Trump wants the conversation to be on socialism. We will be fools if we allow the conversation to be that on some label. That is not what we fight it on. I don't care what you believe, you fight it on. They must fight on a fair and moral economy. The Democrats and progressives must fight the 2020 election from the county level to the state level to the national level on their terms. Let Trump bloviate on socialism versus capitalism. They must talk about making the economy fair and moral. Why am I doing this topic today? Why am I in God's name doing this topic today when yesterday I did a topic on socialism versus democratic socialism versus capitalism versus what Elizabeth Warren is doing and how she's doing it, which is perfectly so. I am doing it that way because I think it is imperative that this issue is not allowed to flourish, cauterize in people's minds. Democrats and progressives running for office for cities, the counties, the states, the federal representation must fight on their terms. They must not allow Trump and the Republicans to dictate the narrative. It is not about socialism versus capitalism. I repeat, it is not about socialism versus capitalism at all. Let's not fall for the con. Let me tell you what it's about. Tell the American people what it will mean to elect them into office. Be specific and tell them how you will do it. Progressives must stay on the offensive. Let conservative politicians defend the tax cut scam. Let them defend the tariffs. Let them defend the environmental destruction. Let them defend the world political turmoil. Do not at any time allow them to force you on the defensive, because it is the policy since, it's a policy since Ronald Reagan, for which we have the results of now, that need defending. We are seeing the results of Reaganomics. We are seeing the results of voodoo economics, as stated by George Herbert Walker Bush. We are seeing the effects of trickle-down economics. We are seeing the effect of supply-side economics. That is what we're seeing today. All the distortion within the markets, all the transfer of wealth from the people to the few. That is the results of Reaganomics. That is the result, the ultimate result to capitalism on steroids. Don't even argue about it anymore. That is what we have been living in under. And we must force them to defend that. We are not on the defensive here. So when Donald Trump says socialism, you say fair and moral economy requires that we do Medicare for all. Fair and just economy requires that we do family leave. Fair and just economy requires that we pay off student debt that is really a loan to corporations who need an educated supply of people, and they're trying to get it on the cheap. As states cut budgets, remember this, as states had cut budgets, people have had to pick up on the price of education, both more tax dollars elsewhere, as well as people themselves. So in effect, the raw material that these corporations need, as opposed to investing themselves in it, they believe in socialism for corporations. Socialism for corporations. And how is the socialism for corporations? Because you are paying to educate the people that they must have. If they want to build a car, shouldn't they educate those people who are going to build the car, and then the profits then can be spent or let out equitably? No, that's not what they want. They want you to invest in everything that they need from you. But they have you believing that they are doing you a favor. They are doing you absolutely no favor. That capitalist sitting down at his pool, collecting on the appreciation of the stocks and the dividends of the stock, sitting down while you work. That is his income. That is his wealth. Your work. Let's make sure during the 2020 elections not to bite your tongues, not to go back there and retract, not to sit back there and feel like you're asking for something or begging for something. You are not. You're taking back what is yours. You're taking back what was stolen. You're taking back what was legally because your politicians have been bought for so long. They have legally created structures to literally rob you. Let's get the narrative straight. They must defend it. When they talk about tariffs to make allow folks to make more product in America, a tariff isn't a penalty on the country selling stuff to you. How do you think Donald Trump is helping to helping to not make his budget explode more than it's exploding right now? Tariffs. And what are tariffs? Taxes that guess who pay? You do. You pay the tariffs. When they charge a tariff on aluminum, you pay a higher price in cars. And that higher price is a tax that then goes into the treasury. And when that goes into the treasury, that offsets the monies that went, that tax cut scam that went to the rich people. That's what it offsets. Folks, I need you to understand exactly how things work in this country. You need to understand. That is why I wrote the book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, because most people don't understand these concepts. And what we do is we lay it out in a manner that's easily understood, because most people don't get it. Because, again, there's no value in teaching this to you. That's why in your high school curriculum, you don't really learn as far as how things really work. They don't want you to know. The reason why they took away civics is they don't want you to know that government is we the people. They want you to think that government is government, those bad people. No. If you still had civics, you would know government is we the people, and if government isn't working right, we the people put people in there that will make sure and ensure that it works right. We have to get it right, people. We have to start understanding it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to understand what is going on in this place. And we don't. The reality is we don't. But we must. If we don't do that, then they will continue. They will continue the pilfer. And I know you hear me talk about the pilfer, the pilfer, the pilfer. How true is that? Are they really pilfering us? Are they really being bad to us? The answer to that is a categorical yes. And it is our responsibility. It is on us to teach ourselves. Now, for the blog of the week, I didn't write the blog of the week. It was written by Walter G. Moss, a professor of emeritus of history at Eastern Michigan University and a contributor to History Network, History News Network. And as I was reading, trying to contemplate on what's the best subject to cover today, the drug thing came late. Or the drug that's probably something that I probably cover pretty soon. The theft that occurs in the job domain. But what I want to do is take you to this subject. He has a great article that he wrote, and I looked at that article and I'm like, I couldn't have done any better. But hey, before I forget, guess what, guys? The cups are in. The cups are in. Politics Done Right mugs are in. Go to store.com store.politicsdoneright.com. Store.politicsdoneright.com. Get yourself let's get our posse together. Our posse is gonna be together. We're gonna start having these Zoom video meetings where we can drink our coffee out of our Politics Done Right cup and talk, learn together, and do things. But folks, do you know what time it is? ¿Sabes qué hora es?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the title of the blog post is Capitalism, Socialism. How about just a fair and moral economy? And that's where I got the title for my show today, A Fair and Moral Economy. And I told you this article was really written by Walter G. Moss. And what I want to do is I want to deconstruct the article, because the article it touches the subject very well. He says as follows, and again, he's a professor emeritus at Eastern Michigan. If I'm not mistaken, I actually saw this guy. I think actually visited us at the Lone Star College Center for what is it? Center for, I forgot the name of the center, but I think I saw him in person, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it goes as follows. In early 2019, Donald Trump warned against socialism, promises unity, but it delivers hatred and it delivers division. Socialism promises a better future, but it always returns to the darkest chapters of the past. That never fails. It always happens. Socialism is a sad and discredited ideology, noted in the total ignorance of history and human nature. So says Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. His campaign claimed that Bernie Sanders has already won the debate in the Democratic primary because every candidate is embracing his brand of socialism. But in February and March of 2019, numerous candidates such as Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and John Hickenlooper scrambled to answer whether they favored capitalism or socialism. If I were any of them, I would simply say I am for a fair and moral economy. Call it what you will. Politics is too full of labeling. My rationale for such a statement is that capitalism and socialism have too much historical baggage. And you know what? Elizabeth Warren taught me something, and it took me about 6 months to get, or from the time that she created the accountability in capitalism. She has a new act that she wants to call Accountable Capitalism Act. And you know, what I did in that thing, and I read it to you yesterday, is I broke that down. I broke down her Accountable Capitalism Act and showed you all the pieces that she wants. She wants to have workers on the board of directors. She also wants to have, there's a whole lot of things, list of things, right? And then I started to deconstruct what she was looking at. Workers on the board. That somehow is a compromise that somehow looks sort of like a cooperative, right? Of course, a cooperative, the ownership also goes to the employees, but if you have workers on the board, then you can have stock options that make the workers part. I mean, there's a whole lot of. So what I saw her doing is she wasn't going to fall for the socialism trap. In effect, she listened to what Moss had to say. And what did Moss say that you should answer? You should answer the call very simply and says, I am for fair and moral economy. Call it what you will. Politics is too full of labeling. And what she did is she just says, what I'm going to do for you. And guess what? If you like it, vote for me. And anybody who reads it loves it because it makes sense. Socialism and socialists have long been scare words conservatives have hurled at opponents. Social Security, socialists. Medicare, socialists. In the 1960s, when Medicare was being debated, the American Medical Association had a leading actor speak out against it on a record entitled Ronald Reagan Speaks Out Against Socialized Medicine. Ha 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 ha. Bernie Sanders might admit to being a democratic socialist, but his critics like to ignore the difference between this type of socialism common in Europe and the kind that existed in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, or in modern Venezuela. In his State of the Union speech, President Trump claimed that Venezuelan socialist policies have turned that nation from being the wealthiest in South America into a state of abject poverty and despair, and that in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country. What he should have added to that is America will never be a socialist country for the people, but it will continue to maintain corporate socialism where corporations are supported by all the people. All the taxes are collected so that we can funnel them to the corporate state. That is where we need to go. And that's what I'm telling people. That when I tell you we don't go from the defensive now, we go on the offensive. America currently is a socialist state for the corporations. Period. Punto final. America, repeat that, folks. America is a socialist state for the corporations as it is run right now. When the tax cut scam was effected, they transferred your money to the corporations. When they passed laws concerning the environment, they transferred laws. They made sure the corporation was kept whole. When they tried to create international treaties, they are allowing you to pay. If for some reason you pass a law that corporation says infringes on them being able to make a profit, then they can extract that profit from the taxpayer in that vicinity. Social policy for corporations. And this is why I tell you we have to understand it. You should go get my book, Class War. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. We lay out a whole lot of this stuff, how these corporations use all kinds of laws, from the patent system to many other systems to do what? Screw you, extract from you, because you know what? They are the ones that are preeminent. Continuing with his post. there have also been the periodic depictions of greedy capitalists, e.g., the 1987 film Wall Street, and I quoted that in a couple of my blogs before, in which Michael Douglas' character, Gordon Gekko, proclaims greed in all forms, greed in all of its forms, greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind. The rapacity of corporations such as Wells Fargo's that created fake accounts and Purdue Pharmacy that put money making before health and sparked the opioid crisis, and the present incarnation of ugly capitalism, the author of The Art of the Deal, and our current president, Donald Trump. Hey, think about this. Earlier I started the program with the drug companies. Remember I told you about the drug companies and what they were doing. The drug companies somehow are trying to tell you that generics are no good, they can be dangerous, ta-da-ta, ta-da-ta, ta-da-ta. And here in America we have corporations that have created the opioid epidemic because they want to sell more drugs. They've created all sort of ills within society in order to sell back to society. Here we have a company that got you hooked on opioids, and now they want to create a new drug that takes you off of opioids. So we get you hooked, and then we charge you to get you off. Capitalism at its best. Capitalism at its best. But I don't want politicians talking about capitalism or socialism. I want them talking about how are they going to do things for you. Tell the people what's wrong. Tell the people that the drug companies are screwing them. They don't have to say that that is corporate socialism. And then tell them how they're going to solve it. You don't have to tell them that is democratic socialism for the people. You just tell them what you want them to do, what you're going to do for them. That's all you got to do. Nothing else. One of the main problems with unrestrained capitalism is, as sociologist Daniel Bell in The Cultural Contradictions of Capitalism's 20th Anniversary Edition indicated, is that it has no moral or transcendental ethic. And I spoke to you about that yesterday. Capitalism has no soul. Capitalism cares nothing about humanity. And in fact, capitalism is a detriment because it grows at all costs, devouring whatever it must devour to keep that standard thing called growth profit. Okay? That is by design, by definition. There are no two ways about it. If everything that I just said is true, then by definition it has no soul, no ethics, no moral. And the fact that you have evangelicals invested in those who believe this is inordinate, in those who believe absolute unfettered capitalism and accepting any form of social values for people, tells you the corruption that is the religious right, the corruption that is, the corruptedness that is the evangelical movement. Those preachers are nothing more than, they're doing nothing more than what I would call the devil's work. Assuming there is a devil. You know, I'm a humanist. I don't believe in all that stuff, but they do. Based on their own beliefs, they're doing the devil's work. Based on their own belief, most of the churches today supporting conservative ideology are actually supporting what they claim the devil is all about. Remember that, people. It is essential that those of you understand that had Jesus been here, Jesus would have done exactly what he did in the Central Park, where he knocked down all the tables, including those of the Pharisees who constantly preach, "Oh, we love you, dear Lord," but they do nothing. You remember that story that Jesus told? When he went as a poor person, somebody went as a poor person to a home and they turned him away. He was hungry, they turned him away. He was this, they turned him away. And then Jesus came and they said, "Oh, Jesus, what took you so long?" or something like that. I forget that. These were in my Sunday school days. I don't remember the stories exactly. And then Jesus said, "I've been here 3 different times, and each time you turned me away." Welcome to the evangelical movement. Jesus would recognize them quite well. Jesus would recognize them very, very, very well. And I'm not blaming you, the pew, because you have a shepherd. And the sheep has a tendency to follow the shepherd. That's just how the things function. And your shepherd has been leading you astray. It's time for that shepherd to go. It's time for you to take control. It's time to you to take on your own morality. It's time for you to do the right thing. Because what I'm telling you is what these guys under the name of God they're doing. And I'm not talking about the good religious folks now. But I'm talking about those people who don't see the bad in Donald Trump, those people who don't understand the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, all these other phobias of that man, who condone it, and in condoning it, makes it a part of their own being. But we continue. There was one period in U.S. history that attempted to provide the moral ethic that capitalism ignored, the progressive era between 1890 and 1914. One historian characterized the progressive movement of that time as an attempt to limit the socially destructive effects of morally unhindered capitalism, to extract from those capitalist markets the tasks they had demonstrably bungled, to counterbalance the market's atomizing social effects with a counter-calculus of the public weal, in other words, public well-being. This movement did not attempt to overthrow or replace capitalism, but to constrain and supplement it in order to ensure that it served the public good. Welcome aboard, Elizabeth Warren. But I have a message for all of those who read this, right? Capitalism, as I define it, once you do those changes, it's no longer capitalism. It is free enterprise. It's no longer capitalism. In fact, well, we'll go there some other time. I don't want to kind of miss the trend here. Although progressivism succeeded in some ways, its forward momentum was stalled by World War I and 12 years of Republican presidents from early 1921 to early 1933. The presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, 1933 to 1945, and his New Deal economic and social policies renewed the progressive effort. Despite ebbs and flows in the continued advancement of progressive economics after World War II, the U.S. State Department in 2001 still declared that though the United States is often described as a capitalist economy, it is perhaps better described as a mixed economy, with government playing an important role along with private enterprise. And that's a true statement made during the George Bush administration. Very important statement. To further such a mixed economy, Pulitzer Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, in his new book, People, Power, and Profits, Progressive Capitalism for an Age of Discontent, recommends progressive capitalism. In an interview, he explains that he believes in a market economy, but also in government regulation. And his term suggests that, like the progressives of the progressive era, he believes that our economy should recognize a moral or transcendental ethic, seeking the common good. Such a goal has also been recommended by Pope Francis, who has criticized modern-day capitalism as unjust at its root. Of course it's unjust at its root. It's an evil economic system. It is just one step ahead of feudalism and slavery. It's just that the slaves don't realize they're slaves right now, because it's antiseptic slavery. We were all part of it. Antiseptic slavery. You still have the masters on top. We just give you a little bit more and give you the semblance of freedom. Again, what we give you? The semblance of freedom. What is it, folks? The semblance of freedom. You think you're free? Brother, do you really think you're free? Let me tell you about freedom. I digress from the blog post from the young man. Let me tell you about freedom. The fact that I couldn't develop one click because Amazon under Jeff Bezos had already patented it. It hurt my freedom. I designed it myself, but I couldn't use it. The fact that a farmer cannot plant a seed that grows from his ground that put by his hand, that ain't freedom. The fact that you can actually do, how should I explain this? The fact that you can be forced, if you own a piece of land and tell a company, I don't want you through this land, and it's not an absolute necessity for the survival of a country, and a corporation can go to a judge and say, Judge, I want to go through there. And the judge says, yes, you want to talk about freedom? We can go on and on and on about your semblance of freedom. The fact that a woman, that the political sphere in Georgia, and I don't remember the other state, is attempting to take away a woman's right to her own body, where an 11-year-old who somehow has a induced miscarriage can be thrown into jail forever. You want to talk about freedom? There's nothing that equates capitalism with freedom. Nothing. In fact, it is closer to slavery than it is freedom, just a benign form. And for anyone who wants to argue with me with regards to me attempting, there was a person called a few days ago who got irate at me. I am demeaning all the black folk in America who were really slaves and their skins were torn to pieces from the whip, etc., etc., etc. You want me to tell you what's the worst kind of slavery, brothers and sisters? Welcome aboard, Daniel S. on YouTube. Let me just tell you guys, hi everybody. Let me tell you something, guys. This is important. This is very important. I know well, I don't know because I never lived it, like I told the young man. Neither he nor I could possibly know what that type of slavery was, where if you do something wrong, they split you apart, they whip. I mean, it was nasty or whatever. That's bad. That was slavery. But that was one form of slavery. That was an arcane physical type of slavery. The worst slavery you can have is when your mind is enslaved. And most Americans' minds, we are enslaved right now. And you know why we are enslaved? Because we were indoctrinated from birth via the Powell Manifesto to think that some system that we have is divine and we must do it this way. And the way that we must do it is that way that came from the top, from a few that says, this is how it's done. And until we decide to use our own brains, unslave it, unchain the brain, and start to ask questions. Why? Why is it that it is this way? Why? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué es así? No tiene que estar así. It doesn't have to be this way. So we continue now. A fair and moral economy, however, is easy to defend while still having historical roots. You're against it? What do you want? An unfair and immoral economy? In President Harry Truman's 1949 State of the Union address, he declared, every segment of our population and every individual has a right to expect from our government a fair deal. As part of such a deal, he proposed universal health insurance. We must spare no effort to raise the general level of health in this country. In a nation as rich as ours, it is a shocking fact that tens of millions lack adequate medical care. We are short of doctors, hospitals, nurses. We must remedy those shortages. Moreover, we need and we must have, without further delay, a system of prepaid medical insurance which will enable every American to afford good medical care. That is from whom? You know how long ago that was from Harry Truman? 1949. 70 years ago. And the corporatocracy, the evil within the system continues to hammer Americans off of what is duly theirs. A conservative coalition of Republicans and Southern Democrats, however, blocked such health insurance and many other aspects of Truman's proposed fair deal. You notice it? A coalition of Republicans and Southern Democrats. That is what we're talking about, people. That is what we're talking about people. I love what you're saying there, Daniel D. We must decolonize our minds. I love that. Decolonize your mind. Repeat that again, people. Decolonize your mind. Thank you, brother. That's a good one. Very good one. A moral economy also has worthwhile precedents. One of capitalism's earliest heroes, Adam Smith, taught moral philosophy in Glasgow, and the theory of moral sentiments, 1759, provided the groundwork for his later, more famous The Wealth of Nations, 1776. However, right or wrong his ideas might be, one cannot claim that Smith was indifferent to a moral economy. And I never read Smith. The truth of the matter is, I don't want to read Smith. I thought about, okay, let me go ahead and enlighten myself and read Smith. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am living the economy that these guys put together. I am living it. We know it's wrong. I don't need to know its origins. I know what it's doing today is wrong. I know it hurts people. If you care about people, you want an economy that serves them all. And, you know, we had a caller that called in and he said, Egberto, you will never get to convince Americans to leave what they have right now. You will never get Americans to somehow become more fair in their beliefs, more moral in their beliefs relative to the economy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, because things are not bad enough. Remember, I tell you the semblance of doing well. I tell you something that Professor Richard Wolff said once. This is when I fell in love with what he was teaching. It was called Capitalism. What was it? The Capitalism Hits the Fan. And what he said is he pointed out the semblance of prosperity during the Reagan era, right? And I try to understand, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, things were really going well. And then Clinton came and they kind of zoomed up even more, right? And then we started looking at charts. And I don't know if you guys recall, when I was in college, it wasn't easy to get a credit card, right? You had to have a job. You didn't get large credit card balances. Credit card limits, all of that sort of stuff. I remember getting my first card, very small limit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, during the Reaganomics time, deregulations and all of that, and you started getting all kind of mails offering you all kind of deals for credit cards. Hell, I financed Willie's computer software company, my company, on credit cards. I did over $100 and something thousand on credit cards at 19, 20, 21%. That's how I formed my company, because banks laughed at me. Even though my druggy friend got his $40,000 for the loan back in the 80s, I got zero. They laughed at me. That's another story, and that's another dynamics within our supposedly capitalist free market system that's another story. But anyhow, Richard Wolff says, take a look at where America's semblance of wealth came from, semblance of prosperity. Well, there was a time when we didn't carry a lot of credit personally. But suddenly, as our wages stagnated, the powers that be still wanted money circulating. They still wanted people buying stuff. So how do they get you to buy stuff? How do they get you to buy stuff? They give you credit. They keep giving you credit and credit, and you keep buying. And if you're buying stuff, the economy is circulating. More factories are being built because they got to build more cars. Even though you don't own the car, you borrowed the money from the bank to do the car. And you keep borrowing and you keep borrowing. And what it means is two things happen. You either stop accumulating your wealth, because as soon as you accumulate wealth, you're throwing it out to somebody else, the banker. Or simply, you go into negative cash flow default. And that was a semblance of prosperity that we had. Our wages stayed stagnant, but our credit increased and increased. So what he showed on the screen, I remember dropping my mouth just fell when you saw those lines diverge. As your income and wages stayed stagnant, that line of credit just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. It kept on growing. And you know why? Because that was another way to rip you off. I own you. When I talk about, don't get mad when I call it slavery. When I talk about slavery, I mean it. As you owe and owe and owe to somebody else, you become an indentured servant, a slave, without the ownership rights and property. And that is what occurred. So, continuing. More recently, in 2016, Bernie Sanders gave a talk. He gave a talk in Rome entitled The Urgency of a Moral Economy, Reflections on the 25th Anniversary of Centesimus Annus. In response, I devoted a substantial essay to the talk. Thus, only a brief recap of its main points are needed here, so says the person who wrote this. And he said as follows. First, Sanders noted that the Catholic Church's social teachings, stretching back to the first modern encyclical about the industrial economy, Rerum Novarum 1891, to Centesimus Annus, to Pope Francis' inspiring environmental encyclical Laudato Si', have grappled with the challenges of the market economy. There are few places in modern thought that rival the depth and insight of the Church's moral teachings on the market economy. Sanders also claimed that Pope Francis, in his 2013 apostolistic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, stated plainly and powerfully that the role of wealth and resources in a moral economy must be that of servant and not master. Church people, do you hear that? Isn't that something Jesus also said or implied? I ended my essay by writing that one of Sanders' most important contributions might have been leading us to re-examine the question, how moral is our economy? Now, 3 years later, some of the Democratic candidates for the 2020 presidential nomination, such as Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, are suggesting that our present Trumpian economy, which favors the rich, furthers inequality, and despoils our environment is unfair and immoral. Any questions, folks? Unfair and immoral. In his new book, People, Power, and Profits, and in other places, Joseph Stiglitz indicates that our present economy is not only failing American citizens, it's failing the planet. And that means it's failing future generations. But he not only damns the present Trumpian economic approach, but also suggests various more ethical solutions. All the present Democratic candidates need to do the same. They don't have to answer whether or not they favor capitalism or socialism. They just have to tell Americans what they intend to do to make their lives better. Nothing less, nothing more. Repeating, nothing less, nothing more. Folks, the telephone number, we're up to 48 minutes, so the telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Let me get some of these messages here. Let me see. We have here. Today I'm going to take some of you guys on Facebook. I mean on YouTube. From Gail Lloyd. Hello Egberto. Hello Gail. Hello Daniel S. on YouTube. And then I'm going to come to the Facebook folk. Amen. Thank you very much, Daniel S. And then let's see. Daniel S. says capitalism was built on the financialization and privatization of slavery. That is something a lot of people don't understand. And when I mentioned that, when Richard Wolff talked about slavery being an economic system and that capitalism was just another form, before I heard Richard Wolff say that, I was talking about capitalism being an antiseptic form of slavery. Well, he kind of tied the knots between capitalism, feudalism, slavery, as well as socialism, communism, and Marxism, which is a transition. So, yeah, he did that on one of the programs that I had. Daniel S. says, yes, we must decolonize our minds. That is absolutely true. And Gail Lloyd then says, bravo, Restream bot. Yeah, there's a Restream bot. I don't quite know how it works yet. Restream has that thing that they are just instituting. So I got to spend some time to learn some of this. But boy, am I busy with all these other things. Okay, we also have Daniel saying, I feel you, and he says, indeed, so he's concurring. Nice synchronicity. Thank you, my friend Gail Lloyd, and so forth. So look, guys, before I get to the Facebook, folks, I need to remind you guys that this is this show is an independent, completely independent, and not only independent, but progressive show that needs your support. I'd love for you to go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Anybody who subscribe, and the subscription is a coffee a month. Come on, $1.99 a month. As little as $1.99, but you can give more. We have all kind of different options there. But the idea here, brothers and sisters, is to keep this stuff alive. We're all over the place. We interview all kind of folks. Check it out. Just check out politicsdoneright.com. See the work that we do. Go to egbertowillies.com. That is where I do my blogging and my writing. And check out my books. All my books are available to you free of charge for all subscribers to read online. As I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. A lot of the stuff that I talk about economically is in that book. Please check it out. Support independent media at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. The other book that I have is that I'm writing this book currently. It's called How to Make America Utopia. I'm way behind. I've written 2 chapters. They are already online. I'm working on chapter 3. I want to have that online soon. I keep telling you guys that. Slap me around if you will, because I am late. But there's so much happening. There's so much that I'm doing. But that book, as every chapter that I write, goes online right away. Now, the other one here is I lost a whole lot of weight. And the reason I lost a whole lot of weight is because my blood pressure got up to 240/140, and I wasn't doing too well. Well, I am now. I learned how to take it off several years back and keep it off. And this book kind of illustrates what I said. Say no to snake oils, weight loss. Don't believe it. You got to do the work, and that's what I do. So check that out as well. Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. All those, both the book, Lose Weight and Be Fit Now, and as I see it, you can subscribe to us and get it online. Or also, you can, of course, go to Amazon.com and get these books. So that is Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. And the other one is, as I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. And guess what? The cup is out. My cup is out. So, folks, please go ahead and go to store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, and get yourself the Politics Done Right cup. We have T-shirts and swags, a lot of other swags there. Again, all of that is really, look, you're paying that price to support Politics Done Right. You're paying that price to ensure that I can go to D.C., to ensure that I can go to Philly. I'm going to Philly in a couple months with on Netroots Nation, where we're going to be talking to all the progressive politicians, the progressive activists, and all these guys are going to be out there. So we it's expensive. That is how we survive. So what I do is I ask you to do that. I'm also going to be forming the posse pretty soon. A posse of, I want to have like my 200 top supporters in this posse, and we'll have all kinds of things put together. I haven't had that yet. I like to say I'd like my 1,000 supporters, but right now right now I'd like to get a whole lot more patrons. I'd love to get to 1,000 patrons this year. You guys can help me quite well. Anyhow, folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Let me go to my wonderful people on, my wonderful folk on Facebook too. I don't see anybody on Periscope to answer any questions to, but let's go to see what we have here. Bear with me. You know me and this thing here. Coming down to you right now. Here we go. That's not it. Where we go right here. Los comentarios. Sí, con los comentarios voy a comenzar a responder a mi gente. A mi gente quiero hablar con mi gente. Let's see, how do I get... Okay, I see Daniel Daniel Ledo and Michael Cisak. I must cause you guys to blow a fuse today, my brothers and my sisters, because you guys have been active there, but I'm just trying to get to the right one here. Let's see if that's it. I think that may be it. That's it. I found it. I think I found it. There we go. Michael Rudnin. You know what is funny? Trump was one of the biggest beneficiaries of socialism. Michael Rudnin, you are a very smart dude to recognize that, and that's called corporate socialism. Daniel Ledo just got here. Hey, brother Daniel. Daniel is my conservative buddy. I love Daniel, but Daniel just loves to get under my skin. It's a good thing Egberto is such an expert on this healthcare stuff. I am not an expert, but I read. And not only, and when I don't know something, I ask. And then I come and I tell you. And if there's something that you guys stump me on, guess what I do again? I ask. And then I go ahead and I respond. That's all. Okay, Daniel Ledo, but let's ignore a Democratic extremist at unhinged transgender shooting a school. Oh, and let's also fail to address the crisis on the border. Hell, while we are at it, let's focus exclusively on healthcare and ignore Democratic presidential candidates calling for jailing gun owners. Oh, I won't use that word. But anyhow, Daniel, I'm going to answer that one. All right, Mike Cizak, the con is by the lies of the left. And even the New York Times said the left lied about the tax cuts. No, they did not. The tax cut was a fraud. The tax cut, most of the money went to the wealthy. That is a mathematical fact. And when they said most of that money was going to be, the corporations that got the tax breaks would have created jobs and do all these things with it, most of it went back exactly where we said it would go. And that was as tax returns, or rather as stock buybacks. Come on, CSAC. You can't hide from the numbers. They're out there. You can check the SEC. You can check all these things. Come on, CSAC. Don't lose your credibility, brother. Okay? I still love you, but don't lose your credibility. Okay, Daniel. It's not about socialism versus capitalism, says the guy who practically every day rails against capitalism. You bet. I am railing against capitalism. I am. I don't want the politicians to, because I am not running for anything. I don't have to convince everybody by 2020 that capitalism is a failure. Elizabeth Warren does not have the time between now and 2020 to convince enough people that capitalism is a failure, so she has to concentrate on what she's going to do for them. That is what I mean, sir. And that's, if I didn't explain that at all well, do accept my most sincere apologies. Okay, Egberto gets to decide what is equitable. No, I don't get to decide what is equitable. We get to decide what is equitable. Let's see. El Señor Ledo, I will gladly pay more for my Chinese crap if it means putting America in a better position in the future with trade with China. And what points are we willing to make sacrifices? Again, you see how you guys think? You are willing to make a sacrifice for your outcome, and you are wanting to force me to make a sacrifice for something you don't like. Right? But if I do something the converse, I get trouble from you. It makes no sense. From YouTube, it's obvious that the mainstream media is subordinate to neoliberal capitalism, and those of us that have been in Latin America know that New York Times is just the State Department of... Oh, wow. Who's this? Daniel. You are very politically aware. Daniel, you better join our posse. You better join the posse, buddy. Go to patreon.com/politics. Patreon.com/politics done right. We need you in the posse because I love folks who can see between the lines. Absolutely so, Daniel. Okay, let's see. Mike Cizak, the FDA has been restricting drugs that are now cures for decades, killing millions of people because that's restriction. Isn't that what you say? Oh, boy. Let's see. Daniel in New York says, the New York Times, Adele, are basically just the PR department for neoliberals. Yeah, especially in Central America. Neoliberal extraction, especially in Central America and Venezuela. You know, I have spoken about that a whole lot, Daniel, where I've told people that the reason why we must not allow Venezuela to be successful is America will not allow a successful democratic socialist state sitting on top of a mountain or an ocean of oil. And yes, agree that Joe Biden represents the incrementalism, and I'm afraid it's too late for that. You're so right. Read my article at egbertowillies.com on incrementalism. Go to egbertowillies.com and just do a scan on incrementalism. You'll see the several articles I've written about that, my friend. Okay, sorry, Bernie, Scandinavia is no socialist paradise after all. Okay, let me tell you something that you have to understand, CSAC. When we start to show America what is going on throughout the rest of the world, we have all these authors that come out of the woodwork to somehow demean or make it look less. The fact of the matter is you don't see those people flock into the United States, and when they hear about our healthcare system, when they hear about our educational system and what it costs, they stay put. Or they stay within the European Union. As bad as they have. The European Union is kind of smart, right? They let us fight the wars. They let us spend all the money on the crap like war machines and all of that. And they make believe that they're subservient to us. What they really mean is they just let us go off and protect them, quote unquote, protect them, and they live. they live. You know, there's something that Carter said recently is that, you know, while we are fighting wars, China is building stuff all over the world, getting goodwill. Do you think China is doing that to build goodwill? Yes, they're doing it to build goodwill. Are they building it because they're benevolent? No, they're not. But they're building it to keep influence. We better learn that. And unfortunately, we don't have people that are asking the right questions. We don't have people asking the right questions. Folks, I really appreciate having you guys here with me. We are at the end of the show. For questions that I didn't get, or for anybody that I didn't Paul Baker, welcome aboard, Paul. I didn't see you in the room. Thank you for showing up. Let's see who else. Mike Cisak. I see some new names in there. Okay, great. We're at the end of the show. I need to do my ask one more time. If you're joining us just now, please remember this is a progressive show, a progressive independent show that needs your support. Please go and support us at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Make sure that we stay alive. It's imperative that we do. Likewise, we have anybody who subscribed to our network, anybody who subscribes, and it's cheap. It's a cup of coffee a month. Cheap. You subscribe to us. All our books you can read online. And also, if you want, we can set you up with ad-free scanning, that sort of a thing. But we do need your support. I really need to get up to several thousands of these guys. We're not there. We're not even close yet. But you can help us by spreading the word. Whether you're a conservative or Democrat, Republican, or an anarchist or whatever, you know that this is your show. You know you have a voice. I have some regulars here like Mike Cisak and Daniel Ledo. Nobody has ever attempted to run these guys off who have diametrically opposing views than I do. But I love to have them because why? They keep me on my toes as well. There's nothing wrong with good dialogue, respectful dialogue. And I love having my conservatives, liberals, progressives, and everybody with us. But we got to go now. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willis. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willis. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.